Welcome to Chatsunami. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Chatsunami. I'm Satsunami, of course, and joining me today is the amazing and very awesome BlowfishmanTV. Blowfish, welcome on once again.
Satsu, thank you. It's an honor to be on here yet again. Thank you again for considering me for just being another guest. You know, you've seen me do a bunch of podcasts, and I kind of just sitting and talking as much as I do gaming and interacting with the folks. But once in a while, it's good to kind of just chill out and just hang out with a friend, like what I'm doing right now.
Oh no, absolutely. That, and you are definitely, I think I've said this to you before, but amongst all my friends, you're definitely up there with people who are knowledgeable about JoJo's Bizarre Adventures.
Yeah, of course.
Because I told my other co-host and he just ran for the hills. Whether he's going to get a copy of it or not, I don't know. I like to think that, but you never know. You never know.
Oh, of course. By the way, I'm tuning into your stream, and the fact that the blowfish lights up when I talk is really cool. How did you do that? You need to teach me how to do that.
Oh, I'll need to send you the link.
Of course. That's awesome.
I was honestly so hyped when I managed to get this working. So, if any of you guys had seen last week's podcast, I was testing it with my friend Adam. Only instead of a blowfish, he was a talking sandwich. Long story, but. Yeah, basically I'm glad I've managed to get it, sorted and everything, so I'm absolutely hyped if anybody else is coming on the show that I can have this set up. Thank you for the compliment.
Of course, anytime, dude. That's awesome. I was like, that is new, and I would like to learn that one day. So I might as well ask a friend,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I will definitely send you the link to it because it is so easy to set up. Well, I say that, but it's Streamlabs and OBS, it's the usual.
Of course, yeah.
The usual devils of streaming, as it were.
Yeah. Oh my God, those two fucking programs. They are just they could be a bit of a pain in the butt. Last Monday, Satsu. I don't know if you were there, but last Friday OBS stream went well. That was, I think, my first one ever. On Monday, it just decided to crap out on me for the first 20 minutes, and then I'm apparently my mic was cutting out a lot, and it was just so bad. And then I had to restart stream, and then everyone's like, "What'd you do?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Everything literally just turned itself off and turned it back on." And now we're here.
Oh God, that is the worst. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen to me.
Yeah, not today. Hopefully not, guys. Hopefully not.
Yeah. As you can see, we are going to be talking about the one and only, it depends what side of the coin you're on, whether it's the infamous or the famous JoJo's Bizarre Adventures.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be doing pretty much a retrospective because Blowfish and I have been working on discussing, going into more depth about each part in pre-recorded Chatsunami episodes, which should be coming soon, so please check out my Twitter for more information. Yeah, when we recorded, so we've only recorded one part so far, and that was for Phantom Blood, which is the first part of the anime, and we spent, about an hour just talking about that part.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to go into with that. So today we're going to kind of just give more of a general overview of we're probably going to focus on more parts 1 to 5, because it's the perfect timing, because as of recording this podcast episode, Stone Ocean, which is part 6 of the anime, should be coming out, is it next year, I think?
Probably next year, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Sometime next year, yeah.
Unless they keep delaying it and they're just no, we're not doing
due
this.
To COVID, honestly, due to COVID restrictions, I feel like it could happen, which is the sad part.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but it's still exciting to know that it's in their minds, because otherwise it was like the Half-Life 3 scenario where it was when's Stone Ocean coming, and then when it actually comes, it's oh great, now we have to find something else. When's Steel Ball?
We don't talk about Half-Life. I feel sorry for hardcore Half-Life fans. Oh my God, all the memes I've seen, I'm you guys have to go through this sucks.
Oh, it's terrible. I was laughing at when they announced, I think it was Half-Life Alyx for it was the VR headset one, and I was just oh man, as you said, just feel sorry for Half-Life fans. Just they were expecting Half-Life 3 or Half-Life 3 VR, and they just get that, and you're just yeah, poor guys. But yeah, sorry. Back to JoJo.
Oh no, no worries, no worries, no worries.
But so yeah, we're going to be focusing on parts 1 to 5, and just basically a general overview and a general retrospective about things that we like about the anime, and kind of just reasons why we think that you should, and by you I mean you lovely listeners at home, why you should at least check it out. Because I feel as if with this anime, there's something for everyone. I mean, do you think that?
Honestly speaking, yeah. Like something for everyone in the sense that like each part, dude, you and I both know that each part is just different. You know what I mean? Sure, like the main character is part of the Joestar bloodline, fine. But the stories are always different. You know, like you got Jonathan, who is basically, you know, the OG posh gentleman. And you know he's taking on, you know, it's basically like a sibling rivalry sort of thing to the extreme. Then you've got like part 2 where it's Jonathan's grandson who's just straight up bananas, who's just like all over the place, but he's also like he's that character who's just incredibly smart, but he's just so dang lazy, right? And then due to the fact that he's so witty and smart, that's how he defeats his enemies, right? He's not like Jonathan, who is just a straight up brawler for the most part, right? And then you have part 3 where, funny enough, I did my research on this. You have Jotaro Kujo, who is basically like your typical badass anime shonen protagonist, right? But the thing is, apparently, for those who have watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, he was based off of Clint Eastwood's character, which is kind of funny. Yeah.
Oh.
Like I think Araki said it in like an interview, right? And like you have him just trying to save his mom, I believe, because his mom is sick because spoiler alert, Dio's back, and because of that, you know, his mom is sick for that reason, and they're trying to figure out why that is. But their only solution is kill Dio. Part 4. Oh, Satsu, I know you love part 4. I love part 4 as well. Very underrated in my opinion out of the current 5 that have been animated. Part 4 is basically a like it's not even about a big thing like saving the world from Dio or saving the world from the Pillarmen, right? It's about just, it's gonna sound a little funny, Satsu, but like it's sort of like if Neighborhood Watch was cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, is that just me? Like it's like a cool Neighborhood Watch kind of feel.
Yeah, if Neighborhood Watch had like evil spirits, and more sandwich shops, then yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. And then you got part 5, and it's all about the mafia, and I'm like, that's crazy, you know.
And it's so weird because get used to me saying it's so weird because this anime is anything but anything but normal in the conventional sense.
100% not normal, but you know, if I were to hear someone say JoJo's super normal, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what sort of normal you're into, but okay, that's
like if I ever hear anybody say like, oh, it's just a normal, crazy normal anime, it's like, no, what anime are you watching that this is normal in comparison? Like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
So I'd just like to point out that Green Shield is just like, it's bizarre. Yes, it is 100% bizarre. This whole dang anime is bizarre.
Oh,
every part of it.
I mean, when they say bizarre adventure, they really mean it. Like, you know when some animes say, oh, it's crazy in this, and you're like, yeah, sure. And then when you watch this, it's like, yeah, no, the bizarre is well merited. As I was saying before, though, it's weird how this... Basically, it started off as... So kind of backtracking a little, it started off as a manga in 1987 by, as you were saying, a guy called Hirohiko Araki, who basically based it off of like a lot of the, well, not based it, but a lot of influence, let's say, like came from a lot of the shonens at the time, like especially Fist of the North Star, where a lot of the characters are just like, what is the word? What is the adjective? That you would describe?
Are very swole.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say. That's simply putting it. Like, if you were to see John Cena in anime form, that's what their bodies look like.
Oh god, it's like really strange how that kind of style carried over for like the first 3 parts, and then when it got to like part 4, then Araki was just kind of like, yeah, we better tone this down and make them more realistic. And it's like, yeah, probably for the best. Probably for the best. Yeah. Because it's hard to believe like someone's 17 years old when they're basically built like a shit brick house, essentially.
What?
It's just, they're absolutely massive, because kind of like minor spoilers here, but in the very first part there is a scene where it skips from the antagonist and the protagonist like knowing each other as children, and then there's a flash forward to the future. It is basically them really muscular, so I assumed, oh, it must be because they're adults, and then it cuts to like an announcer being like, and it's the, I don't know, like the college or like the high school rugby game or something like that. So they're only technically like 17, 18-year-old. 18 years old, and you think this is ridiculous. Even for anime standards, even for
so ridiculous.
Like it would make Dragon Ball blush. That's how bad it is. It's like, oh my god.
Oh my god, I can't believe you would actually say that, but it's true. It's just so funny because a friend of mine who loves JoJo as well, he's just like, I'm 17 years old, built like a truck, and I'm like, yeah. Pretty much. And has like a voice deeper than mine and everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's not far off with half of these characters. I mean, it's especially when you see like them standing beside characters that are just normal, and it's I don't know if you've ever seen that meme image. I think it comes from Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's like one where the protagonist from that is like standing amongst like a group of like really plain looking like extras. And of course it's Yugi Moto with like this spiked up hair, and it's all like multicolored and everything, and like the caption says, oh boy, I wonder who the protagonist is. And then like there's an arrow going to this random guy like with the brown hair and everything. He's like, yeah, it's totally that guy. It's totally
pretty much.
Yeah. And it's like every time you see these characters, it's like they give off big protagonist energy, don't they?
100%.
But it's quite surprising because I think I was talking to you about this before, but it wasn't until like 2012 that they actually got an anime adaptation
for like Phantom Blood, right?
Yeah, because I think initially there was meant to be a movie of the first part. It was released in 2007, but I think they just scrapped the idea, so the footage is still there, but they never really released it properly. So it's like one of these kind of phantoms of merch really for JoJo fans. And there was an OVA for the third part, I think, where it just basically focused on the latter half of part 3, which is called Stardust Crusaders, and my god, that is a long part.
It is a long part. I agree.
I mean, I'll come on to it later, but this part really tested me when I first watched it. Yeah, this was the part that nearly made me give up on JoJo. And I know this is a plot twist. This is where the to be continued comes up.
I love that, dude. I love that meme so much. Oh my god, it's so good.
Yeah, a lot of the compilation videos, if you watch any of them on my YouTube channel, like 9 times out of 10, you will get like a to be continued meme in it, and I'm just like, I just love this meme. It's so good.
It's a great meme.
Oh, it's so good. But yeah, before we
sorry.
No,
sorry. I don't mean to derail it, but I just love the sound of that song. But keep going.
It's so good. I was just going to say, before we jump into like the kind of main aspects of JoJo, and I feel like Ace Attorney here, like asking you about this.
Sure, like, go ahead.
What was the moment, like, just to explain to the people like listening, what was the moment like you got into JoJo and you kind of thought, okay, this show is for me, kind of thing?
All right, so the very first time I truly decided to delve deep into the JoJo rabbit hole was when anime conventions were still a thing, before COVID hit. And I would see a bunch of my anime friends who absolutely love JoJo. They would always quote Dio saying like Zawardo and all that, or like Kono Dioda, like all the memes essentially, right?
Oh yeah.
And then they would show me it, and I'm like, oh, is this from JoJo? He's like, yeah, right. So they would show me it, and then I started quoting it, and then eventually I'm just like, okay, like I'm quoting a bunch of these JoJo memes. I want to know what the context is behind some of these, right?
Yeah.
And then my friends are like, oh, don't do it, otherwise you're gonna become a hardcore JoJo fan like us. I was like, you make it sound like a bad thing. He's like, it can be because everything's a JoJo reference, and that flew over my head. Yeah. And I'm like, huh. So then fast forward to when the coronavirus actually hit. I think it was around August of 2020. I decided, hey, I have Netflix and I see JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing this. We're going to start it for once, right? So I tune into Phantom Blood, and I'm just like I think it was a narrator who's speaking in the beginning, and like I liked the sound of the story. I'm just like, oh, this is about like brothers who a sibling rivalry. Dio wants to steal like the fortune of Jonathan, etc., right? Like it goes basically why Dio got adopted into the Joestar household. So then that kind of got me engaged, and I'm just like, wow, okay, this is kind of normal for a first season, right? So I keep watching, and then eventually, like I see Kono Dioda, and I'm like, oh my god, now I know the context of this and all that, right? And then I keep watching, and I'm like, I end up finishing Phantom Blood, and I'm just like, wow, I wouldn't say, like, if it was just a standalone anime, I wouldn't rate it super high, right? That's what I was thinking. And then I'm just like, but at the same time, it wasn't bad. I mean, I kind of want to know who the rest of these JoJo characters are now that Jonathan's gone, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, let's tune into season 2. I go into season 2, absolutely love Joseph. I'm like, you're his grandson? What? That's literally me, right? And like he's doing all these cool things. He's beating on like corrupt cops. He befriends Smokey Robinson. He goes after racists in like a fucking restaurant. I'm just like, I rate this guy.
Yeah.
I really like Joseph. And then, eventually I see the Pillarmen, and I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? Like that, like the moment the Pillarmen fucking break out of their statue form and start doing their poses, and I'm like, That's literally me. That's how I felt seeing the Pillarmen. And then for some reason, I'm just like, this is really weird. But let's keep watching. And then I just went down into the rabbit hole after that.
Yeah.
And then just binged the rest. So that's my experience with JoJo, guys.
God. I honestly am I think the only difference between you and I is like the timeline's probably earlier for me. Like see in terms of like oh god, like see in terms of the memes, like so I've got a friend, for you guys listening you'll know them as Said or Putebags, who is my like mod for Twitch, and yeah, he kept telling me about JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. I kept hearing about JoJo, like it was like, oh, I'm watching JoJo, oh, you should watch JoJo, and I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And yeah, like any of my friends will definitely support me in what I'm about to say here when I say I am terrible. I am absolutely terrible at basically watching things that are recommended to me. Like I always say, yeah, I'll watch it, and then I never do. And that is that is basically my that's my downside when it comes to things like that. So much so, kind of like briefly off topic, but I remember once I had told Green Shield that I hadn't watched The Shawshank Redemption in university. It is. But like flash forward a couple of weeks later when it was my birthday, and he was like, here you go, and I opened up this present and it was like a DVD of The Shawshank Redemption, and he just stares me dead in the eyes and he goes, watch it. I was like,
hey, that is a good way to make someone watch something. That's so fucking funny. Oh my god, that's great.
But there's like been so many shows like that, and unfortunately like JoJo just fell in that just that bracket. God, yeah, like the same thing happened, that Corona hit, and I was like flicking through Netflix, I was working from home, and I thought, you know what, I'll put it on in the background. I've heard it's meant to be good. I mean, I'd heard the memes, like Zawardo, Kono Dioda, things like that, but what I didn't know was that there was vampires in it.
Yeah, so that was another thing I didn't know too.
The vampires and the half-naked gods,
yes.
they took me by surprise. Like, I'd heard the memes, but when they came up, I was like, because I'm not gonna lie, like I was sitting in part 1 thinking, when are the Pillarmen gonna get here? Because I knew nothing up until the vampires started rolling around, and I was like, what is this show? And
another thing I forgot to mention when watching part 1 was just like, where's this purple man that stands behind the main character?
Oh,
like, when does he come in? That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, because there's just so many like pictures and references you see, and it's like trying to piece them together. It's like Memento. You're like trying to think, like what like obviously when you watch it for the first time, like you realise what goes where, but see, looking at it out of context, like, I genuinely think that you could watch, or sorry, you could hear a JoJo spoiler and it would not affect you whatsoever.
Right?
Like, you
Like,
know,
I know that
like,
feeling.
like, you know, usually when you hear spoilers, like, oh, so and so died,
Yeah.
or, you know, like, oh, this character A punches character B, and that's going to affect the whole plot. Like, for
Yeah.
this, like, for example, a part 4 spoiler, if I said exploding cat, or part 3 water dog, or something like that, you know, like, no, like, genuinely, like, out of context, like, that makes
Oh my
absolutely, I
god,
am
it
speaking
makes 0
gibberish,
sense.
yeah.
Like, if
But
I were to say that to someone, Satsu, and they're like, what are you smoking? Like, they would straight
yeah.
up say, what are you smoking? And like, depending on the person, like, let me get some of that
Yeah.
or something.
Because usually it's like, there's a difference between, like, when you give an anime spoiler and then you give a JoJo spoiler. Because I feel as if JoJo's just, like, one step above that. Whether
Yeah.
that's a good thing or not, I don't, that's for you guys to decide. But,
Satsu, I
yeah.
don't mean to interrupt, but Dio Brando is in your chat,
Oh.
and he's going off. Everyone's just like, oh my god.
Yeah,
He
he'll
gave you a
tire.
follow.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Yeah, he'll tire himself out. Don't worry. It's like, I'm sure he'll,
Give him time. Give him time.
yeah, give him time. He's in Egypt, so the time difference will get him. Don't worry. It's actually so again, bizarre, haha, but it's bizarre how JoJo's is. You would think with an anime like JoJo, it would be, you know, this kind of self-contained, oh, it's a manga anime, you know, that's all it's in. You know, you wouldn't expect it, other than the memes, obviously, but you wouldn't expect it to seep into other aspects of. And I don't want to make it sound as if it's like a weird creature crawling out your screen. But it's like seeping into other aspects of society, because I was actually looking into this, and apparently Iraqi has a exhibit, and I don't know if it's still up, but in the Louvre in Paris, he's actually got an exhibition there for, I think it's for part 8, Jojo Lane.
Oh shit.
It's really, like, I had a wee sneak peek on. See, this is the thing. It's like you go to Paris, and it's like, why did you go to Paris? Is it for the culture? Is it for, you know? Because I was saying that to my friend Said. I was like, this is in Paris just now, and it was like, you know, oh, you go for the culture, you go for the food. No, 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 no. I'm just going for. I'm just going for the JoJo. Yeah, I'm just going, and then just heading back home. It's like, yeah, but
it's like the food is all nice and fancy, but hey, this is what I'm here for. Points to JoJo.
oh yeah,
that would be me too.
Yeah, it's like the meme where it's like, this is nice, but this. Yeah.
Or like that meme where it's just like, you know, there's like a Korean K-pop girl just looking at like a toy and then looks to the water bottle. It's like Eiffel Tower is the toy with the water bottle.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Pretty much.
Exactly. But I mean, it's not even art as well. It's like, apparently they've got their own like fashion line.
Oh, do they? Oh.
I can't remember if it was Gucci or something, like something really high profile, which really took me off guard. But there's like JoJo branded like, suits and outfits and clothing and things. And I don't mean like cosplay, I mean like genuine suits. Yeah, people wear. And I know that sounds stupid to be like, oh, of course people wear suits, but like kind of understated ones. Like there's one you can get where I think, and I could be wrong, but I don't know if you can get like the Killer Queen tie.
Ooh, I would love one of those.
You can get a Giorno suit, and the only reason I know this is because I follow a guy on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen him, a guy called Dog VA. He does like a lot of anime and kind of voiceover stuff.
Okay.
But he's like a big JoJo fan as well, and he did this video which this is one that really like took me off guard, where he was like reviewing his, like he bought like hundreds of like dollars worth of merch, and he'd bought like 2 suits, and one of them I think they were mostly based off of part 5, so it was like a kind of beige suit. Oh my god, I can't even speak. Beige
That's okay, I
suit.
get what you're saying.
And it was based off of like Giorno's kind of, not his outfit, but you know, like the style and the kind of pin, like the tie pin with the ladybug and things. It was really like, it was something you looked at and you thought, on the one hand, that is pricey as hell, and then I'm like, on the other hand, that does look pretty That does look pretty swish.
It really does.
But it's weird that the anime is kind of transcended into that. And it's like proper fashion, because you know what it's like. You know, whenever like you went to an anime con and you would get like the t-shirts where, or even in some shops where you just get a really like horrible like render of like a PNG of the main character of an anime, and it'd be like Dragon Ball, and it would be like something for Hunter or something, and you'd just be like, yeah, no, this isn't that.
Pretty much.
But yeah, it's I don't know, I just thought that was like really cool that he's managed to kind of break into both like art and fashion and things. He's probably just living the dream, really.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, jumping into like the main kind of draws of JoJo, like 3 main points that I thought kind of encapsulates JoJo as a whole. And if you've got any more, like please feel free to jump in.
For sure.
But the 3 I kind of thought of was the story, which again we'll kind of go over it in a broad sense because there's so much to talk about for each part.
So much, yeah.
There's the action as well, which I feel as if is like really top tier in this one, and I'll kind of go into like more detail later, but it is like a really good aspect of it. And of course the last one has to be the characters. I feel as if the characters are really just what makes the anime.
I agree. I 100% agree.
It's because without, like, you could have like a really good premise and then just mess up. Like with 100%. Bad characters. I can't remember what anime it was, but there was an anime that I watched that was like, it came out the same time as Attack on Titan, and it was a similar idea. It was, there's big big creatures that invade and they have to drive them off, and it's a very similar premise, but whereas like Attack on Titan did it really well, at least for the early stuff. Yeah, like this
I
other
can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember the name of that anime. Well, that's how you know it kind of flopped.
Yeah,
that's to people who love that anime.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So apologies for that anime that I refused to mention because I watched the whole of the first season. I don't even know if there's a second season of it. It was Black something. I don't know if it was Black Bullet or Black something.
Black Clover?
No, not Black Clover. But no, it was rubbish anime. Whatever it was. It's like, let's move on.
Like, it's trash. Let's keep going.
I honestly spent like hours. Well, not hours, but I finished it. I went from start to finish. And yeah, it's one of the few animes where I thought, I've just wasted my time. Yeah, which isn't something I can say for JoJo, because when you look at it, so kind of going on to the first point of the story, like when you look at it, the first part is like a very traditional hero's journey of it sets up the villain, it sets up the hero, he fights, and then when it ends, it jumps like ahead to the second part, to a descendant. And again, like between the vampires and the time skips, I was not prepared for any of them.
I was not prepared either. I'm like, so first episode, you guys were like little boys. 2 years later, you guys are built like trucks. What the hell happened? What is your dad feeding you guys? That's all I thought. Yeah,
it's like there's a distinct lack of cows in 19th century England, and I think that's why. I think all the protein was just getting shoveled into them because, everybody else looks relatively normal.
Yeah, right?
Yeah,
and then there's these guys who are just,
Oh, it was... I mean, even, like, when he meets other characters later on, like Speedwagon and Zeppeli, they're not even that beefy. It's like, what?
They weren't.
No, like, I mean, they're kind of not built. They're muscly. Like, all the characters are more or less muscly, but they're not like Fist of the North Star. Yeah.
No. Like,
did you say like John Cena?
I was gonna say like characters like Speedwagon and Baron Zeppeli, they're like a reasonable amount of muscular. Like, say if I were to like, they're more like on the ends of like, actual muscular in like real life, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe someone who works out a little more than they usually do, but like it's possible to achieve that form.
Oh yeah, know? Maybe not a 70. Well, maybe. I haven't. Yeah. All I'm saying is like, because I live in Scotland, I have not met many 17-year-olds that are shaped like that. I'm not like walking along the street and then it's just like a 17-year-old is just like punching trees and things, and it's like, okay, moving on.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But I think the best thing... So, I suppose, like, kind of to quickly backtrack, you can really split from part 1 to 5, you can really split it into 2 parts, can't you? Like the first and second part focus on like a technique, or like how to describe this? Not a technique, but like the world building in it is a little bit different in 1 and 2 than it is in part 3 to 5. So in parts 1 and 2, it's about the hero learning a technique called Hamon, not to be confused with the Spanish ham, which is delicious, by the way.
I might get them after this,
Oh, it's so good. But yeah, sorry. I honestly, like, next week for Chatsunami, just going to talk about ham. But yeah, like parts 1 and 2, they learn this technique called Hamon, which is basically just sun karate, isn't it?
Yeah. Pretty much.
And they they use it to basically fight vampires and, like, as I said, semi-naked gods, which is that's a whole other bucket of fish. We're not going to be tipping over.
Exactly. I'm just saying. Yep. This is yep.
And then part 3 like spins all of that on its head, and I don't even like. I was looking into it to see why. There was such a drastic change. So sorry, just to kind of explain, they essentially take that fighting style of Hamon and then they replace the entire like fighting system with a new thing called stands, which is pretty much just like rock'em sock'em spirits, isn't it?
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah, where it's like sorry.
It's too bad if you like uppercut.
Yeah.
It's too bad if you don't. It doesn't work when you uppercut. Like when the stands uppercut each other, like the head doesn't pop out.
It's like
a robot.
Oh
That'd
no!
Be funny. Oh no!
But yeah, it's like apparently in part 3, everybody has these like spirits that are called stands, and they've all got different abilities, which on the surface is cool. Like, I think a lot of people who were following JoJo from the beginning, and I mean myself included from the anime, like, again, this was like the third blind swipe of the show. I was like, okay, first vampires, then, the plot twist and everything, and now this. I was like, what is this? And it took me like, so this is the thing, like, I don't know if you've had any like or talk to anyone who's had a similar experience, but I was talking to one of my friends about this, and he said that he pretty much gave up halfway through part 3, and I think that seems to be, from people I've talked to, it seems to be like a common place that a lot of people kind of drop the series. Whether that's because there's like this change, I think the change was because the editor of like the manga at the time had told Iraqi like, yeah, this is getting old, like change it to something new. So he was like, yeah, okay, spirits or stands. Yeah, so he changed it over to stands, and I think like just a lot of people were kind of confused, and you can certainly tell in some episodes when you're like, okay, how can they do this but they can't do that? I think it was just like a case of them finding their feet with the new power. Like, have you ever heard that before though? That like a lot of people kind of struggle with part 3.
Yeah, actually, it's I think a friend of mine who actually was tuning into it. They said they're like, oh, I really like the whole Hamon, fighting system. It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And then they get to part 3, they're like, oh, so what happens with Hamon? What's with this new like power system, right? And I'm just like, honestly speaking, it's been written off. Like actually, like. It just doesn't exist. The only one who is Hamon in part 3 is old Joseph. Yeah. And those are only for like a hand. Like I could count all those scenes on my hands probably. Other than that, yeah, I'm like, yep. So they're like, so it's gone. I'm like, yeah. So this purple man standing behind Jotaro is the new power. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. And they're like, okay. And then they just kept on watching. Yeah. It was like it just took them aback, really. They're like, whoa, what happened to this old fighting system?
Yeah.
And then, now they finished all parts. And they're like, okay, I could get behind stands after, a certain amount of exposure. Right?
I feel as if, and this is, I mean, no offense to anyone who is a fan of the series, but I feel as if this is the definition of a Stockholm anime. It's like the more... So as I was saying before, like part 1 and 2, like I absolutely loved part 2. I thought like part 1, it's not the best, I would say, but
it is.
It's not the best, but it's not the worst. Like it's a good start. Like seeing the context of the whole like saga from part 1 to 5, it's a good start to introduce the world, to introduce. Sorry. Like unintentional pun there.
I was gonna be like,
So like it's a good introduction, and part 2 I think perfectly capitalizes on that.
Yeah.
But then when you get to part 3, because they've got this new system, I mean, it's kind of like I'm just trying to think of other animes, because before I came on I was trying to think of other animes that done something similar. And there probably is like animes out there that did it. But I mean, I suppose it's like something like if you were watching Dragon Ball, and technically they've done something similar, but it's like if instead of like firing ki blasts, they started like throwing Pokeballs, and fighting with, Pokemon instead of like with their fists. It's like it's just kind of
Strange.
jarring. Like it would probably still be cool, but as you said, it's strange that this is the direction. And I have to admit, like, I feel as if with part 3, part 3 is definitely the hurdle. It's a very long part. Like, part 1 is only, 12 episodes, I think?
Like, not even like 7 or 8. Right?
7? Oh,
and
God.
then
Yeah.
Part 2 is like 15, and I'm like, oh, that's not so bad, right?
Yeah.
And then you go to part 3, it's like 45. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
That's what you mean.
Yeah, I honestly nearly had like a heart attack when I saw that. I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a really quick series to get through." And then I saw part 3, and I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it!"
Oh my God, though. Pretty much.
I was just like, I cannot believe that I'm going to be sitting here watching all 40 so episodes. And I did, like, I have to admit, there was a couple of episodes that were, I have to admit, I just did not enjoy it. Like, I had to really push myself, because the thing with part 3, and trust me, I am coming on to like a positive point here.
Okay.
Like, the thing with part 3 is it felt more like an adult version of a Saturday morning cartoon at times.
Yes,
Like,
100%.
especially for the first part. So, just kind of give a quick context. Basically, the plot is about a guy called Jotaro who has to find Dio from the first part. He basically has to find him and kill him. That's the premise they set out. And they have to travel all the way from Japan to Egypt. And as they go along, it's like wacky races. As they go along, they keep encountering like different people trying to stop them, people trying to, kill them, trying to kill them in their dreams. Yeah, long story. And eventually at the second part, they reach Egypt, and it's such a slog at times. Like, the characters are good, but then the repetition of it just kind of sets in. And I know, like, there's certain characters that get killed off, and that was their way, or Araki's way of trying to say, oh, we're going to try and spice it up and make it more interesting. I don't know, it really was hard for me to get through it. And once I got through it, like the Dio fight at the end, the whole like finale when they get into Egypt, that's great. Like, I loved it. It's honestly really good. But it put me off,
good, yeah.
like, I mean, between that and me being too lazy to look up Crunchyroll, I was just put off with like watching the fourth part, and that's what my friend was saying. It was like, watch part 4, it's really good, and I'm like, I don't know, and like, again, I took ages, and
okay.
well, not ages, sorry, a couple of weeks. It's like it's like my time in lockdown is like anime minutes, where it's like 5 minutes is like a couple of weeks. It's like
10 episodes.
Yeah, it's like
10 episodes.
Yeah, it's like, hot damn, I've really blazed through this series. But yeah, like, eventually I did get onto it, and I absolutely loved it. I love part 4. Without going into it like too much, it's a lot more kind of intimate and personal. Like, it's set in like a small town in Japan. It kind of hones in on what stands do. So it's like, before it was kind of like, it was in part 3 they kind of throw all these powers at the wall and kind of just see what sticks, whereas in part 4 you can tell, don't get me wrong, like, there are, like, obviously he's thought about it in part 3, but I feel as if part 4 is when it really takes its stride. And I suppose the same can be said for part 5, except for King Crimson. But we do not have enough time to go into King Crimson.
King Crimson and Gold Experience. I'm like, that is a whole different monster that we can like, definitely talk about on the pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Like,
do you know what it actually reminds me of? It's like, you know that meme where it's like, and I know I keep bringing up memes, but it is JoJo, so I'm allowed.
Yeah, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
But it's like, you know that picture where it's like, it's a guy on the keyboard and he clicks the upgrade button, and he clicks upgrade, and it's like, what I feel is like the guy like clicks upgrade for part 3 to part 4, and it's like it's perfect. But then he presses it again, and then it gets part 5 where you've got all of these like complicated things going on, and then it's just the button that says, "Oh fuck, go back, go back."
Yeah, pretty
It's
much. Yeah, I'm just like, oh, part
oh.
5. Oh,
Like part 5 is good in its own right, but just some of the
is.
stuff that happens, you're just kind of like, what, how,
I
why?
agree.
I'm so confused. Why is there a
That,
turtle
yeah.
there? What?
Okay, yeah, that's the thing, right? Like, that's how I felt. I thought I was the only one who felt
Yeah.
that about part 5. I'm just like, what is going on?
Oh
Why
yeah.
is there a turtle? Why is everyone so much skinnier? Why are there? Well, okay, here's another thing that I could sort of draw a parallel between 3 and 5 is that they sort of reuse the idea of like villain of the week, except
Oh
you
yeah.
know, it's not Dio. It's gonna be Diavolo, who's it's don't worry, Diavolo's not related to Dio, completely different character. It was sort of the same thing in that sense, right? So they sort of brought that back. I think that's what like I do like part 5, don't get me wrong, but like
yeah.
I knew there was something a little teeny bit off of it. I'm just like, why have I seen this before? And then I'm like, oh, they've already done this in part 3, sort of, right? Just you know, with more refined stands in part 5. But I'm like, oh, okay, so they sort of used it, except, you know, they're not going to the boss to, you know, kill him for the sake of the main character's mom. They're going to the boss because, you know, the main character wants to be the boss, essentially.
Yeah, it's like
Different intentions, yeah.
Yeah, it's like One Piece syndrome.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah,
Yeah.
like actually, though.
He just wants to be king of the mafia. Is that too much to ask? You know?
I'm gonna be king of the mafia with my Stan Gold experience.
Yes. Giorno, no! Don't get on the boat!
Giorno, please, why did you become so much dumber?
Oh, God. That's another Chatsunami in itself.
Yeah, pretty much.
Although, that is my anime confession. I've not really watched One Piece before.
My
Like,
anime confession is that One Piece, I just look at wikis because there's just too much.
Yeah.
And I essentially know what's going on because my friends talk about it, and I'm like, okay, I know who each character is. I know I essentially know what's going on in the current arc, but I wouldn't say I've watched it or read it.
It's like Dragon Ball or something like that. Like, I think because I grew up watching it, like, I was lucky in that regard. But, like, something like Naruto, like, I didn't grow up watching that, and then I tried watching it, and I just... There's just too much. There's too much anime.
There is a lot.
But that's the thing,
There's a
though.
lot.
Like, Boomer Satsu aside here, saying there's too much anime.
Me too.
The interesting thing about, like, parts... Well, the JoJo in general... And again, I'm not condoning, like, part skipping, just in case anyone takes this clip out of context. Because, yeah, there's the infamy that, oh, you should watch it from part 1 to 5. And don't get me wrong, like, you can do... Like, I feel as if it's a better experience. A golden experience, if you will. Haha. But if you like want to skip, then I don't feel as if you'd be missing too much. Like
For which part again?
just for anyone. Like if you jump
any of
into
them?
any, like don't get me wrong, there's some bits like the whole thing with Jotaro in part 4. Like you could kind of just assume. Like, or read it in the wiki, I suppose. But, like, don't get me wrong, I feel as if, like, watching it from part 1 to 5 is probably the best experience. But, yeah, you could jump into, like, any of them, and you're going to get a different experience every time, though.
Yes, I do agree with that because I was actually going to say, I'm like, honestly, like, because maybe I'm not saying this right, but, like, the JoJo, each part, you know, can kind of stand on its own. And for that matter, you could just watch it like it's its own anime instead of this part of the series, right?
Yeah.
Another thing is like I guess it like the story writing isn't super linear in that sense because you know how each season is just like, oh, you defeated boss A, now boss B is like his older brother or something, and you have to take him down, and he's like a lot stronger, right? So it's not like super linear when it comes to writing like that, which is why I do agree with your point in the sense that like, hey, if you want to watch, you know, part 1 first and then skip to part 5, be my guest, you know what I mean? Like it'll be a completely different experience. Though if someone were to do that, in my opinion, I feel like they'd be super confused as to like how it got here, you know. But yeah, like I do agree with your point, is what I'm trying to say.
So I'm just laughing because I'm thinking because I said the exact same thing to like one of my friends when I was talking about like Hamon and things, and I was like, oh boy, I can't wait to see how they use Hamon in part 3 and 4. Then I watched it and I'm like,
You're literally like that meme of the monkey meme where you like look back and then look away. I'm like, yep. Yep, pretty much.
It's like, yeah, we need to talk. We need to talk. I'm just like, because I was texting my friend throughout the entirety of like the opening of part 3, just like, who's this guy? Why is he mean to his mum? Why is there no Hamon? Why is there no vampires anymore except for Dio?
Pretty much.
Why is a fly driving a plane? You know, it's like, what is going on?
Yeah, pretty much.
It just
Why is there a blind dude that's attacking them with water? Pretty much.
in the desert. Yeah, it's like, interesting. But
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of that, like the action in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is just like, how would you describe it? Like,
it honestly just depends on the part, man. Like for part one, it's your typical sibling rivalry. You have Dio with like the vampire powers, and then I would describe part one's action just sort of like a very classic martial artist sort of feel, right? Like a classic martial artist anime sort of feel, right? So you've probably seen like the action scenes from like Fist of the North Star, Dragon Ball, Yu Yu Hakusho. Like it'll be like awfully similar to that in that way, like when it comes to feel and like how intense it goes, right?
Yeah.
Part two, I would say how I would describe the action here: brains over brawn, 100%.
Yeah.
Like 100% brains over brawn. Part three, it's just like, well, these guys are very muscular, like the whole main party.
Yeah.
But they don't really fight. They have someone else to fight for them for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And then part four, you're like, oh, like part four is just like super relatable in the sense that like, hey, we're trying to catch this criminal. Let's get him. Yeah. And the main character is just like a teenage boy, like actually, and he actually kind of does look like a teenage boy, like body size wise and everything. Yeah. And him and his friends are like, it feels like this is gonna sound like kind of blasphemous, but I'm like, it feels like if a CW teen drama was written well. You know what I mean? Right? Like that's the thing, right? Like for those who love CW dramas like fucking what was it, like Riverdale, I'm like, picture if Riverdale had cooler characters in my opinion, and that each character has a power that can like help in some sort of way. And then part five, it's your classic, sort of mafia sort of action sort of feel, right? But then there's the twist, which is the stands. So that's pretty much it. Yeah. That's how I would describe each action scene for each part.
Sorry, just looping back to what you said about the CW drama. Basically this morning I actually saw a video on YouTube where instead of that, someone had edited, like there's a scene where Josuke and a couple of his friends are talking in the classroom, and someone edited it as if it was a Disney Channel sitcom, and it went so well with that scene.
Oh, that's funny. You need to send that to me. That sounds funny. I'll
look it up after the stream, but it's honestly, like, I was watching it thinking, this has no right to be as good as it is.
Yeah, you need to send me that. That sounds funny.
It's so funny. I have to admit, the thing that I love like about the action in JoJo is the fact that they utilize their environments, and this is something I think this is something I touched on in last week's episode when I talked about the raid. But that is something. See, whether it's an action film or it's an anime, one of the things that I feel is quite boring in things like Dragon Ball is like when they say, oh, we're going to fight in the desert. And you're like, oh, man.
Yeah, pretty much. And they talk for like the next 3 episodes. And then, like maybe shoot one key blast if you're lucky.
Yeah. And it's like they get like thrown into things, sure. But you're just like, it's like there's no real... No, don't get me wrong, like they're impressive in their own right, but just it's not as impressive as like for example, if you look at Joseph's introduction in part 2, he literally uses a Coca-Cola bottle to stop these 2 racist cops. I mean, does he not use spaghetti at one point to attack someone?
Oh my god, you're right. You're right. Oh my god.
Like he has these like he has a plate of spaghetti which he uses his Hamon on. This is the weirdest thing I've ever had to describe in my life. Yeah, he uses his powers on this like spaghetti to which he like does he throw it at somebody? Or he embeds it in something and it's just like, what? How?
Wait, are you talking about Tonio?
No. Joseph, sorry, in part 2.
Okay.
I think
So
the restaurant.
I know what you're talking about. Like he embeds like Hamon into his pasta and then make it into a weapon and throw it at the secondary main character, which is so funny. I'm like, oh, okay. I thought you were talking about Tonio. I was lost. I'm like, I swear Tonio just uses his stand for cooking, which is an excellent episode, by the way.
Oh, that is amazing. That's the thing.
A great episode.
I have to admit, that is the thing that really turned me to liking stands, when they kind of explored the idea that stands weren't like this kind of, oh, you have to be good or evil. You know, it's like you can have this kind of middle of I'm just a guy trying to do my, I'm just a guy trying to do my job. And
Yeah.
you've got this one character in part 4 that literally is just a chef, and he uses his powers to cook really nice food. And it's like,
And like it helps you with your health problems and
Yeah.
everything. And I'm like, that's very wholesome. That's what I mean. I'm like, that's so nice.
and I mean, you've got another character as well that like changes your face and things. Like, it's like they're
Yeah.
using their stands to make a living.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just the kind of personal aspect of that really endeared me. I thought, okay, so it's not just like, you're walking along and there's just like a muscly man walking behind you. And other stand users are like, what the hell?
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's the fact that with the stands as well, when they kind of move on, as we're saying, like they use their environments like to the best of their ability. Like when you, like especially in part 4, I know I keep gushing about part 4, but
Part 4, no,
Yeah.
Part 4 is fantastic. I don't blame you.
because part 4 is probably like the best example of it, where the main character's got a stand which basically when he punches things, he can punch things and break it, but it has the ability to repair them. There's a scene where he's trying to escape from this enemy on a motorcycle, and he sees a woman and like she's pushing a pram across the road, and it's the typical, oh god, he's going to hit the baby. But he can't stop, because if he stops or slows down, then this thing that's chasing them is going to catch up. So what he does is he gets his stand to punch the like motorcycle is on. So he goes flying, and all these like motorcycle parts are like flying in the air, and then he uses his stand to rebuild those parts into the motorcycle again, so he doesn't lose momentum. And I don't know, like things like that I just felt were really cool. Iraqi, I mean, knew when to kind of utilise like stands and things in the action in very clever ways. And I mean, it's the same with like part 2 as well, when, and this is going to sound so weird again, so apologies, but it's like when Joseph nearly goes off a cliff and uses like icicles to stop himself using his power.
I love that scene.
Like, honestly, it's really creative, and I feel as if that is what makes it stand out, like, from something like, let's say, Dragon Ball. I'm not like pooping on Dragon Ball here, but it's like it's kind of the first example I can think of where it's more than just punching people back and forth. It's like, okay, it's your turn. Thank you, chap. Okay, you punch him. Okay, now it's your turn to punch me. Oh, thank you.
Oh, here's a key blast. Why not?
Yeah, because I think the first time I ever saw an anime that really like opened my eyes to animes being able to do that was Hunter x Hunter.
Hunter x Hunter is good. It's just the narrator.
Oh yeah.
It's just the narrator. That's all I'm gonna say, guys.
Yeah. Just I'm gonna leave that in case anyone's like, "What's the narrator?" It's like you don't want to know. Or if you do want to know, then let me know, and I'll do a Chatsunami on it. But yeah, we're not touching that with a barge pole today. But yeah, going on to like, I suppose the defining part of the series is the characters themselves. How would you describe the characters in this series as a whole?
Like for all 5 parts?
Yeah. Like kind of in a broad sense, because I know we could like go into each individual one.
Yeah.
There's like honestly so much to talk about. It is one of these series that when you look at it in the face of it, I think I said this to you before, but it's like when you look at the anime and you see like, these big like hulking muscle men, you think, oh, this is just going to be a stupid anime where, they punch one another and, there's not going to be like any character development or things. But it's so surprising. Like how much character. Don't get me wrong, it's not like Shakespeare or anything like, but not that I've been watching like a Shakespeare anime recently. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But,
honestly, speaking of Shakespeare, probably the closest thing to a Shakespeare-ish anime would, out of all 5 parts, would probably be part 1, because it feels very Shakespearean. Is that just me?
Oh no, it's a
kind of
total
does.
tragedy.
Like, it gives that vibe.
Yeah, it's like the hero's journey, the tragedy at the end. I'm not going to spoil it, but
nope. We don't talk about that.
Yeah, we don't. I still get upset about it. I'm like, how? Why did they end it like that? But yeah,
I know.
You're gonna have to watch it on Netflix if you want to know, or Crunchyroll, depending on whether or not they've taken it off at this point. Yeah, I think it's still there, but you never know with Netflix. I always I always get halfway through a series and it's like, oh, it's fine, I'll watch it later, and then I come back to it and it's like, we're sorry, but we took it off, and you're like, oh, okay. Thank you.
Or oh no.
Oh no, exactly.
Oh no, pretty much.
Sorry, going back to the characters.
Hmm.
Yeah, like how would you describe, like just in a broad sense of how they're kind of characterized throughout?
Okay, so if I were to look at all the JoJo characters in all 5 parts, if I were to describe it with like a sentence, I would say, don't judge a book by its cover. Like actually, like you'd be surprised that a muscular man, develops a sort of like paladin-like feel to him. When it comes to fighting his vampire brother and all that. You'd also be surprised that you see a slacker, a hardcore slacker, who is just a total goon in my opinion, who like fights people and also uses his head a lot. You would be surprised to see him get a little less lazy. You'd see him start seeing him like develop a bit more of a caring side towards his a person he considers his brother, right?
Yeah.
And when he dies, that's when he gets serious.
Yeah.
Like you'd be surprised that it would end up that way for that sort of thing. Then you have Jotaro, who's just like a complete punk, but then he becomes less punky later and all that. And not only that, but like Jotaro also uses his head to fight too. He's not just a muscular dude. You know what I mean? He could probably beat someone up. Let's be honest.
Oh yeah.
With Josuke, like example would that be like, oh, he's just some sort of like teen pretty boy with a pompadour. All the girls love him, all the ladies love him. But then you also see that sort of with his rough exterior, he's a good dude. Like he's a very very good dude. He's willing to help people, go out of his way to help people. He might have some friction with his mom, but he still loves her at the end of the day. That and like he's just super determined to catch the main villain, right?
Yeah.
And like before, he didn't really care to really do any of that stuff unless it disrupted his normal life or his mom. But then he decided, you know what, I'm gonna go after this guy because he's messing up this neighborhood, and that's not cool, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with part 5 with Giorno, he sort of seems just like a normal sort of, he has a vigilante feel. Is that just me?
No, I can totally see that, because that's the way they kind of characterize him at the very beginning. You see him walking through Naples, and you can see all like the kind of, I suppose, injustice like going on. Like you see people getting dealt drugs and kind of slumped over and like these dingy alleyways and things. And it's like he's obviously being exposed to all of that. And then, of course, as we were saying, his goal is he wants to be the new
boss.
Yeah, the new Godfather. Essentially.
Actually though, but like like you wouldn't expect Giorno to have a bit of a heart as well. He does. He's a good kid at the end of the day, right? But like he does a lot of bad shit. Let's be honest here. But yeah, like at the end of the day, I would just describe the characters in JoJo as a whole as just don't judge a book by its cover. I think that's like probably the best way to put it in my opinion.
No, I totally agree with that, because that is the thing. Like I remember, as I was saying before, like jumping from part 3 to 4 when I was kind of considering it. And I saw the design for Josuke, and ironically enough, that is like the character's kind of trigger when how he talks about his hair and everything and his appearance and when people make fun of him. But I thought initially, when I first saw him, I thought he just looked so silly. Like I was just kind of like I think that's also because he was like the first non-muscular JoJo. So I was kind of like, okay, we've gone from muscle, non-muscle, and then whatever Giorno turns into. I'm not even gonna.
We're not gonna go
yeah,
there.
I'm not even gonna. Yeah, but it's just like with part 4, like it's not until I started watching it where I grew like an appreciation for the characters and things. It's amazing to see how different Araki makes them, because like as you said, part 1, Jonathan is the the gentleman who like saves the day and everything. Part 2 is the feisty rebel who, he gets into trouble and things. Part 3 is quite an interesting one, because I remember one of my friends saying they dropped out of part 3 because they didn't like the new JoJo, because they said like he's really mean to his mum and everything, and he's not a very nice person. And initially I saw that, initially I did see that, and I thought, okay, I'm not a big fan of him. But then when the mum gets ill, with the stand and inflection, like you can tell, like it's subtle, but you can tell he's got like a heart of gold deep down.
He does deep down. Like he's got Jonathan's heart, is what I'm gonna say.
Because I
You
like
know.
I sat there and I was kind of like, oh, like I sat there thinking, oh great, that he's just going to be like that, like very brooding and
Cold.
just
Yeah.
cold throughout
Cold-hearted.
the whole thing. But he's really not. Like he has
He's
got
not.
layers to him, which you can say that for all the characters really as the series goes on. And I feel as if like the more the series develops from part 1 to 5, the better they get at it, except for some of the extra characters. Like I feel as if part 4 was like perfect, like
Part
getting
four
it.
was just right. Yeah.
Like I feel as if it's like the perfect balance between extra characters and NPC. Sorry, I'm thinking of
No, I
video
know what you
games.
mean by like
Um,
extras,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, and like the villains as well were great in that, from the
So good.
serial killers to the
Sutonio, who thought he was a
yeah.
villain, but he isn't.
Such a good
I love
character
Tonio.
though. But that's the thing though, it's like you can
I love
list
Tonio.
so many of them off. And
Yeah.
then the more and more it goes on, it's like a lot of the characters get a lot more distinct, and I mean part 5 kind of stretches it, I have to say. Part 5
does.
kind of
It does.
falters a little. I don't think, as I said, like I don't think any of these parts are inherently bad. I feel as if like here's a question for you, and apologies for putting you on the spot here,
No
but
worries.
would you say, like, what would you say is the worst part out of 1 to 5? What would
Out
you
of
say?
1 to 5?
Not the worst part, but like the least
My least
strong.
favorite?
Yeah.
Honestly, like looking at the series as a whole and comparing them all, just like in my head, I'm gonna have to say part 1, because
Really?
the thing is, why I say that is we also have to give Araki like some slack too, right? Because it's his
Yeah.
very first story, right? There's definitely gonna be a few hiccups in the plot. Together as a series, I would say part 1 is definitely the weakest. But say if like these were all just individual animes, like individual stories,
Yeah.
not part of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, just its own thing. Part 1 is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I would rewatch it is what I'm trying to say. But yeah,
Yeah.
out of all 5 parts, probably part 1. Mainly because I can't really blame Araki for that because it is his first story, so there's definitely going to be a few hiccups. But yeah, that would be my answer. What about you?
Yeah, definitely part 3, I would say. I
You
don't
say
know,
part
like,
3? Okay.
the thing is, like, again, I think it's just because there was like a massive shift from all the Hamon stuff to Stand.
Fair.
So don't get me wrong, I do think that is a difficult thing for Araki to undertake. Like, I can imagine like going from one system where he's like crafted this really carefully, and then being like, oh, by the way, we don't really have vampires now. We've just got the one, and the
Pretty
rest
much.
of them just have like evil spirits that I'm just gonna, just make
Throw in
up.
there.
And yeah, which I mean, don't get me wrong, some of them are really creative and clever, but then others you're just kind of sitting there thinking, "Ugh, it's just a bit wonky." And I think
Yeah.
I do see why it is. I do see why it's like it's not got a steady footing in some places. And honestly, see when we record the Stardust Crusaders one, like I am really hyped to do that one with you. Because
No, me too. Me too. I'm
because
actually very excited for that.
yeah, it'll just be like an hour rant from me, and you'll just be like, yeah. So anyway, but yeah, part 3 is like part 1. I can, like as you were saying, like I can admire it kind of on its own.
For sure.
Like I would say kind of they're tied. I would definitely say they're tied for the weakest parts. Because part 2, at least, because that's the thing, like part 2 I don't think would have been as good if part 1 didn't exist. And I feel as
Yes.
if the same for
You know what?
part
Yeah.
4. Like part 4 wouldn't be as good if part 3 didn't exist. I only feel as if the reason I give part 3 the edge is not as strong is because it's so bloated. I feel as if a lot could have been cut out when they
That's
were
true. That's very true.
like they could have trimmed the fat somewhere. But
They didn't have to throw like a million villains at us, right? I get what you mean.
because I mean they had the tarot. That's the funny thing. They have the tarot cards, and then they're like, "Oh, by the way, we're also basing these powers off Egyptian gods," and it's like, "Okay,
Yeah.
okay, come on."
Like I get the theme going on here. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, everyone like in the first I was like, yo, everyone you're gonna run into, including the heroes.
Yeah.
All of their, stands are named after these tarot cards.
Mm-hmm.
You get through the tarot cards, what's next? Oh, well, now you're in Egypt, so Egyptian gods, pretty much.
Yeah, like
And then like the only tarot card like stand left is literally Dio's, which is Zawardo. But yeah,
yeah, what would they have done if they were in another country? They just would have been like, "Oh yeah,
I don't know.
it's like,
have
it's like,
no idea.
quick guys, like get a history book out. We're gonna need as I said, like, I don't want to like bash it too hard, but it's, for me personally, I feel as if there's like too many kind of moments where it's like, just come on, speed it up a bit. But there's some episodes
Yeah.
where I didn't skip any episodes except one, but I will keep that card close to my chest. But yeah, I skipped through some of the episodes because it kept dragging on, and I was like, but I mean that doesn't make, like, although I just spent the last 5 minutes bashing part 3, I don't think that inherently makes the show itself bad. Is there anything else you would say, like anything particular about this show that stands out?
Is that a pun on
Like,
because stands?
yeah, it is now.
Honestly, like stand out in a good or bad way, Satsu. That's
In
my
a good
question.
way. In a good
In
way.
a good
Yeah.
way. Okay. For the most part, when it comes to standing out in a good way, I guess the fact that the number one thing for me is just how the story goes, you know, like how the whole Joestar bloodline gets involved, you know, how Araki sort of writes that, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, whenever he would write these individual parts, you wouldn't think it's part of the same anime. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So I guess the writing style is just like super unique, and that's what made me stand out. It's because like you go from part 1 where Jonathan's like, oh, okay, cool. So he's just this, you know, rich kid who's, you know, trying his best in this world, and then he has a dickhead, you know, adopted brother, and then part 2 comes out, and you're like, wait, what happened to that, you know, classic gentleman? What happened to Dio? What happened to, you know, everything, right? And then they say, oh, this is his grandson, by the way, and I'm like, wait, what? And then it somehow encapsulated me to watch it more, and I'm like, okay, I need to know who all these other JoJo's, like who these other main characters are going to be. Like, is it going to be the grandson of this guy next season, or son of that guy? You know, like all of that good kind of stuff, right? So yeah, I guess just the story writing is what stood out to me in a good way.
It is a very unique anime.
It is. It is.
It's not one that, I don't know, there's not many, and don't get me wrong, like, I'm not an anime master or an anime expert, but I mean, I've seen like a fair share of anime to say that I haven't seen anything like JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. Like,
I get what you mean. Its own sort of style. I get what you mean.
like, I mean, even with, like, going back to when I was saying about, like, Hunter x Hunter, which, again, like, it has its cool moments of, like, how it uses its action and things, but it doesn't do it in the same way as JoJo, like, in a loose way, like, using the environment and such. It's, like, good for that, but beyond that, it's like, JoJo is just, like, its own entity. Whether that's a good or bad thing. Like,
I would say it's a good thing,
yeah.
because, you know, it's about, you know, this is gonna sound like really super corporate, but I'm like, at the end of the day, it's about, you know, selling your anime, selling your product, right? And I think Araki did a good job with that due to the story writing and due to the characters, right? That's how I see it.
One last thing, like, before we close off, but I can't remember if it was like it was an interview or something with Araki, but apparently, so you know, in shonen animes there is like a trope called like the tournament arc.
Oh yeah.
Where every time the story's like slowing down and they think, oh god, how do we pad this out? And they go, oh, quick, we'll put a tournament in. And you know, yeah, and it's like, I mean, My Hero Academia does it. I would be surprised if Attack on Titan did it. It doesn't, but I would be very...
It would be kind of funny if they did. I'd be like, how would that work?
That would be hilarious.
Does Eren just fight himself and just wreck everyone? I feel like that's what would happen.
In fact, no, they do. Not for an arc, but they do like an OVA. I wouldn't spoil it too much, but they do like a cooking competition.
Oh, that sounds funny.
It is actually brilliant. It's one of my favourite things that have ever come out of Attack on Titan. I was just like, I remember watching it for the first time and just laughing so much. Like, this is the same, you know, anime about giants eating people, isn't it?
Yep, pretty much, yeah, and destroying towns and etc. etc.
But yeah, apparently for JoJo, like, don't know if it was his editor or someone had recommended anyway that he put like a tournament arc in. How that would have worked, I don't know. Like, maybe they would have done it in part 2 with like Joseph and Caesar like entering something, maybe. Yeah, apparently he refused to do it. Or in the words of Rohan, like, Daga Kotogaru.
Oh, because the thing is, like, I was about to, because you mentioned like a sort of battle arc, right? The closest thing we actually got to part 2 in that, in a like a battle arc sense, like, or a Colosseum battle sense, was literally when Joseph was facing Wamu in the Colosseum. Like, that is the closest thing to get to a tournament arc, and I think that was really, really well like written and like put. You know what I mean? Because I'm just like, oh, you know. Because, yeah, I didn't know about that. Like, the fact that, you know, the editors were like, hey, you need to make a tournament arc for these two. But then, you know, Araki's like, no, because I'm like, every fucking anime does that, like, during his time, right?
Yeah.
So, good on him for, like, figuring out a way to sort of appease the editors, but also sort of appease his creativity, I guess.
Oh no.
And I think it was perfectly executed, because, like, it was literally just him and Lisa versus Wamu, because at this point, SCDC's dead. Wamu and Cars, right?
Yeah.
And they did that perfectly. It's like, oh, we have like a whole Coliseum set up. We have like our our personal guard, our personal subjects being like the audience. And they're all like cheering for me to win, because you're gonna lose because I'm Wamu and I'm all powerful. But he didn't put it that way, obviously. But still,
yeah.
which I found really cool.
Because I can't remember what part it would have been if they put in. I'm assuming it would have been either part 2 or part 3. That seems like the most logical position it would have been like implemented. But
I'd say part 3.
yeah, I do like agree. Jesus, can you imagine, like, instead of like the Cell games, it was like the Dio games?
Oh, you're approaching me. just chilling there for 14 days as everyone just trains up.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh my god.
I mean, technically he did do that, but there was no tournament.
There was no tournament. He was just like, oh, you guys are here? Well, I'm gonna kick your asses and probably kill a good 3 out of 5 of you.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah. Oh god. I don't think I would have coped. I think I would have like gone off it for good if it was just like, welcome to the Dio games, and it's just like this big, like, I don't know, stage in the middle of Egypt. I would have been like,
in
nope.
like his mansion or something.
Yeah. It's just like, nope, I'm done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that kind of sums it up though, isn't it? It's just the uniqueness of JoJo that makes it. If you're looking for a shonen anime that is, I don't want to sound corny, but just bizarre.
But yeah, but for real though, guys, like it's super bizarre in like the best way possible.
The only thing I would warn people is, I mean, there's a lot of well, not a lot of body horror, but there's some. So if you're not really into that, like, just fair warning. And if you're a dog fan.
Yeah, if you're a dog fan. I was about to say, I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah, those are the only two things. There's obviously the stereotypical, like, weird anime tropes that they kind of, like, slink in, but the main things are the body horror and the dogs getting old yellered, I think is the phrase.
Yeah, that's putting it very mildly.
Yeah, like, I remember...
dogs.
So, like... without kind of going into too much spoilers, but there is something terrible that happens in the very first episode to a dog. At least in that sense, it was for the plot. Like, I don't like it, but I'm like, well, at least there's a reason why it happened. But then there's a similar scene in part 4 where a guy's just walking his dog, and then one of the villains just kicks the dog, and you're like,
God, I forgot about that, because like, I only remember parts 1 and 3 with the dogs, but not that one I forgot about. Oh my god.
Yeah, he just walks up and boots the dog, and it's like, Araki, what's wrong with you? Like, he loves cats, but not dogs.
Araki fucking hates dogs, confirmed.
Yeah. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he just confirmed and went, yeah, I don't like dogs. And it's like, you know what? I'm not surprised. I'm actually not surprised. I mean, beyond that, though, it is honestly, like, a really good anime, I would say. It's good. I feel kind of weird saying that after saying, well, yeah, if you don't mind body horror and dogs getting kicked in the face, which we don't endorse here.
Other things, but yeah.
There's some, like, other bits, which definitely will be expanded upon in, like, our, like, retrospectives. Overall, I feel as if it's a very, as I said, bizarre but really interesting take, I think, on the series. And I think, considering it's been running since 87, I think that's amazing that it's still going. Although, like, sorry, just before we finish, like, I actually didn't realise that the 8th part, so in the manga, apparently they're on part 8, but part 8 has been running for 10 years.
Wait, what? 10 years?
Yeah, apparently it came out in 2011. And
I didn't even know that. Wow, like, holy crap.
If anyone wants to fact check me on that, please feel free to, but I could have sworn it was 8 years. It's at least since 2014. Like, if it's not 11, then it's definitely 14.
What?
Because 2014 was... Like, I saw a video from 2014 where they had the Louvre exhibition, and it's nothing but JoJolian. So, yeah, like, it's been running for years. That's like, crazy. I'm really surprised. Like, when I saw that, I was just like, this is this is actually ridiculous. When are we going to get part 9? Yeah, he must really love...
part 9 going to happen, right?
Yeah, he must really love this character.
Maybe, yeah.
Because I'm really excited to get to that, but I actually have to, get myself in gear and read Stone Ocean. Which I might not if the anime's coming out, but we'll see.
We'll see, yeah, we'll definitely see.
I'll probably see. I'll probably still read it. And then I'll finally be able to get onto Steel Ball Run, which
honestly,
is...
when you get to part 7, part 7's so good. Like, I've only read the first few chapters, and I'm like, I'm already very encapsulated. I don't know why, but this is a really cool, like, part.
See, I suppose that is, like, the other thing about JoJo, that although we're only in part 5, going on part 6 for the anime... there's so much more content that we're going to get in the future. Because Stone Ocean, there's loads to be explored there. Then part 7, that'll be another couple of years, won't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Because, the anime started in 2012, I think. So, that's been about 9 years, since it started. So they've already got through 5 parts, and now they're getting to part 6. So, yeah, I suppose good on them that they're getting there slowly. But I think that was a meme comment that I read when somebody said they'll probably get to part 8 and the part 8 adaptation before Araki finishes it. And it's like,
yeah, probably.
You know what? I would not be surprised. But yeah, if you, you were listening to us and you think, that show sounds like my cup of tea. I get the feeling that some people might be listening to this thinking, I have no idea, what a stand is, what a Wamu is, what a Hamon is.
What a Cars is, what's a Dio, what's a Jotaro.
Yeah. So yeah, the best source to explain this is, Netflix.
Probably us.
Yeah.
Or Netflix, yeah.
Well, us as well, of course.
This as well, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, aye, of course, yeah.
Why the hell not,
Yeah. I just mean when we are offline. Someone has to take up our mantle. So, yeah, I'm putting the blame on Netflix. I'm putting all the blame. So if people don't like it, blame Netflix, not us. Or Araki.
Oh, Araki.
That's true. But yeah, go check it out.
Yeah. Check it out when you can.
So... yeah, Blowfish, thank you so much again for coming on Chatsunami. Honestly, it's always a pleasure.
Oh, of course, dude. Thank you for having me, man. I'm glad to be back on here again because, as you can see, I'm even sort of holding my own podcast with 2 other wonderful people. And I wanted to come back on here because I'm like, I feel like the only one I could really get into, just talking about JoJo or any other nerdy topics that we both know about would be this guy, would be Satsu. So thank you for inviting me again.
No, it's always a pleasure to have you on here, and especially to talk about JoJo, because I feel as if with a lot of my other co-hosts they haven't seen JoJo, or if they have, if they have, they've pieced out probably earlier than I should have. So, props to them. That's all I'm saying. Props to them. But no, thank you again.
Of course.
So yeah, where can these lovely listeners find you online?
Of course. For all those who are new in chat, my name is BlowfishmanTV. Find me at twitch.tv/BlowfishmanTV. If you guys like someone who can just voice over random light novel characters, currently we're playing some Phoenix Wright on Mondays. We're currently playing some Final Fantasy VII Remake on Wednesdays. Fridays, we are currently confronting my old childhood game of Resident Evil 0 that I have never beat, and I'm excited to actually finally beat it for once. But yeah, the content I drop is just very variety. We could go from just talking about D&D to literally singing 24-Hour Cinderella from Yakuza in order to make someone's day feel better. We can we do squats there now, and we also do commercial breaks for those who want me to make a commercial about something. And I'll see you there hopefully.
What are the other podcasts you're working on as well?
Oh right, so the next episode is coming in next Monday, 3:30 p.m. my time. But 8:30 p.m. for anyone in the chat who's British. That's your time. And then afterwards, we're gonna start doing it on Sundays. Come May, right? And it's called the Getting Real Podcast. That's just a working title for now because we the reason why we want to change it is because we searched it up on Google and there's just so many podcasts with a similar name, right? So we're trying to, for now it's going to be a working title, just Getting Real Podcast. It's just about, shedding some light on, on streamers where it's oh, people see streamers, they're oh, you must make so much money. And we're no, easiest way of putting it. You know, we want to shed some light on the fact that, like, hey, we're still normal people at the end of the day. We deal with like normal people problems, whether it's, you know, being short on money for paying bills, you know, going through just the mental struggle of streaming, you know, stuff like that. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, we just want to, with this podcast, we want to convey like we're still normal people at the end of the day. You don't necessarily have to put us up on a pedestal, even though sure it's great, but at the end of the day, you shouldn't be doing that, right?
Oh yeah, no,
But yeah,
absolutely.
that's what the podcast is essentially about.
Actually, sounds awesome. No,
Yeah,
no, guys,
of course.
go check that out. What are you doing here? Go check that.
No. You guys got to
Yeah.
check out this guy if you want to get nerdy. The podcast does get you like it has a bit more of like a chill but serious tone, not like something super serious, right? But yeah, that's like the tone we're going for this one.
No, that definitely sounds awesome. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, I'll send you the first episode if you want.
Thank
It's
you.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that'd be
for
great.
sure.
Yeah. And I'm not just like reading that off a script, being like, "Oh boy,
Oh,
I
yeah.
would
read
love
this
to."
to make Blowfish feel better.
Yeah, I would love to read.
Oh,
Podcast.
I would love to watch your Getting Real podcast. Yes. Where is the first
This
episode?
episode.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. No, but that sounds awesome. No, yeah, feel free to send me the link. That does sound great.
Of course.
And yeah, if you want to see more of my content, you can catch me on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok. The list gets so long for this now, by the way. I'm just like scrolling through them.
God, I can imagine.
So yeah, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and of course Twitch, under the name Satsunami42. And of course, if you want to catch more Chatsunami episodes, then we do a Chatsunami episode live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. BST. So yeah, if you want to check out more Chatsunami episodes, then you can check it out on Anchor, Spotify, and of course all good podcast distributors. Banks, thank you so much for the shout out there. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight on this bizarre adventure. Thank you again, Blowfish, for joining us.
Thank you.
And as always, stay safe, stay awesome, and most importantly, stay hydrated. Bye guys.
Later, guys.